Wow. What a way to begin. Learning Likutei Moharan about Simcha. Rav Nachman's understanding of what is Simcha, how do we live in a derech of Simcha on Rosh Chodesh Adar. So Misha Nichnas Adar Marbim b'Simcha. So let's bring in a little bit of Simcha into our life. And let's bring Adar into ourselves and into our understanding. So we're going to be learning two pieces. We're going to learn Tinyana Chaf Gimel and Chaf Dalid, both of which talk about the inyan of Simcha, the idea of what Simcha is and how we incorporate it into our life. What is Simcha? Really a fundamental concept. So be'inyan ha-Simcha, on the topic of Simcha. And we know that Simcha is not just like any other mitzvah. Simcha is a prerequisite for just about everything. The difference between something like Simcha and the mitzvah of eating matzah on Pesach or taking a lulav and esrog on Sukkot, what's the difference? Is that Simcha is something that needs to permeate within our very being, within every day of our lives, so that we can do other things, and so that other things are done in a proper way. Unlike a one-off action, which is meant to do something in the world that makes a certain tikkun, that makes something happen on a one-off. But it's not a maniya to other things. Simcha, without Simcha, it's basically impossible to do anything. And in that way, Simcha is truly one of the most important mitzvos, one of the most important things we can focus on in our life. So what is Simcha? So be'inyan Simcha, al pi mashal. Rav Nachman starts with an analogy, with a mashal. Shilafa'amim shebnei adam smeichem u'morakdim. So he says, he paints a picture. Imagine you're somewhere and people are happy, joyous, and they're dancing. And there's someone standing on the side, a little bit timid, and they grab someone from the outside, who's sad, maybe even depressed. And they take him and they, obviously in a friendly manner, they take him and they schlep him into the circle. And what happens? And they force him to be happy with them. Now imagine this picture. You can imagine it goes two ways. Sometimes someone who's really in such a place of being disconnected, being sad, being depressed, might get pulled into the circle and they might just want to run away from it. But sometimes someone might get pulled into the circle and really they were kind of hoping someone would pull them in. They want to be in the circle, but for whatever reason, they don't feel like they can make that jump. They don't feel like they can make themselves vulnerable in that way, emotionally. So when someone takes them and pulls them into the circle, then what happens? They start to be sameach imahem. They start to be happy with them. They start to rejoice. Kein yesh b'inyan simcha. This is how it is in general with simcha. Kiksha adam sameach. That when a person is happy, az yamar shchayra vayisurim nistalkim min atzad. So everything, all the negative feelings and the sadness go to the side. It's a little bit of a behavioral approach towards simcha. But what Rav Nachman is saying here, first let's talk about the analogy of many people, and then we'll talk about this mashal, this analogy, as if this whole story is really just one person. So within many people, what we're saying is, right, we've all been there. We're standing on the sidelines for something, whatever it might be. We're a little bit on the sidelines. And then someone opens us up to pull us in, says, come on, come join us. Or they grab you and schlep you in. And you're very happy that they did that because you weren't ready to take that jump yourself. And as soon as you jump in, you start to not feel insecure, anxious, sad, whatever it might be. Now within ourselves too, looking at ourselves in the circle, there can be parts of us that are rejoicing and parts of us that are standing on the side. An aspect of ourselves that we don't allow to join the circle, so to speak. An aspect of ourselves that we're keeping sidelined. We say, you stay over there. Looking at ourselves as a whole. And then we say, no, that part too belongs in the circle. When do we achieve simcha? When we say that part also belongs in the circle. That aspect of me that is sad, that is broken, that is distant, that is not connected. That aspect of me also belongs. That aspect of me also deserves simcha. Can also rejoice. So he says, so there's one level in which this is docha, depression, meaning it pushes it away. person jumps in and starts engaging in simcha, so the Marash Chora, the depression goes away, the sadness goes away. But there's a much higher level. What is that level? Where the sadness doesn't go away. But the sadness, actually, you run after it. To grab it and include it inside the simcha. In a way that the Marash Chora itself becomes simcha. That it becomes elevated and put into simcha. Meaning not to say, this part of me doesn't belong, but rather even this part of me that feels sad, that feels distant, that feels not connected, that part of me too belongs as the full mosaic of who I am, dancing in a circle to Hashem. Because then, through the simcha, then not only are you pushing away the depression, but you're actually elevating it to a place of simcha. Just like the mashal we said earlier, where a person grabs someone else who's on the side and puts them in to ourselves. Not to say that part of me doesn't belong, but rather to elevate that part of you to a place where it does belong. This is the idea, I believe, where we say in Shuvah, fixing. When we fix something, when we're metaking something, and we're metaking it in such a deep way, it's not that it just becomes obsolete, but that which was pain becomes joy. That which was distance becomes closeness. That's when you really fix something. When you really fix something, you fix it in a way that the breaking points were actually now the points of extra beauty, are actually the points of additional connection. I heard once from my Rebbe, from Rav Moshe Weinberger, that there's a Japanese art called kintsugi, that when they break something, a bowl, you don't just sweep it away and throw it away, but rather with a special kind of gold adhesive, something made of gold, you put it back together and you look at what was broken and you can see the break points, but those break points actually become a beautiful part of the art. And the bowl looks far more beautiful with its brokenness and put back together than it did originally. And I think that's exactly what Rav Nachman is telling us here. There's a place in all of us that feels broken, that feels distant, within this mashal, within this analogy that feels out of the circle. But when we bring it in, it's not that we're leaving sadness aside. It's not that we're leaving whatever difficulty we have aside, but rather we're elevating it to the place in which those breaking points are now the beauty. Then when we look at ourselves and we say, my struggles are what made me beautiful. My struggles are what made me who I am. And that's Zdainos Nasas Chuyos. That which I thought was distant, Even Masu Habaynim Haisalarish Pina. The place where I said, that is terrible. That is disgusting. That has no place. And then Even Masu Habanim, that was hated. The stone that was hated by the builders becomes the cornerstone, becomes the foundation. That's what it means within this mashal to have simcha. To look at myself and to say, what's a part of myself that I think is so far from simcha? And to take that and drag that into simcha. And we'll see how. We'll see how soon. Ze bechina sasoin v'simcha, joy and happiness, yasigu, you will achieve. V'nasu yagoin v'anacha, and sadness and sighing will flee. The yagoin and anacha, that the sighing and the sadness will flee from the simcha. Because at a time of simcha, so all the sadness stands on the side. But you have to run after them, to not just say, okay, good, I'm not feeling sad now, but to look at, during a time of simcha, to remember times of sadness, and to say, to take them and to put them into the simcha. It's the idea, mashcheu lebeis hamedrash. In Bagabach HaMenuvel, zeh mashcheu lebeis hamedrash. You have Yetzer Hara, they're talking, but in general, all of this is connected. You have Yetzer Hara, you have something that's making you feel distant, making you act in a way of coldness and distance. Mashcheu lebeis hamedrash. Don't leave him at the door. Schlep him into the beis medrash with you, and warm him up. And serve Hashem with that midah, with that struggle. Zehu sasan v'simcha yasigu. that they will attain, that they will achieve, sason and simcha will what? They will grab, they'll be able to reach. What are they going to reach? They're going to catch up to the sadness. That is running away from simcha. To put them into the simcha. Meaning, let's read this pasuk again. Sasan v'simcha yasigu. Happiness and joy will reach, will grab yagoin v'anacha. They're going to grab yagoin v'anacha. They're not going to let it get away. They're going to grab onto it. They're going to hold onto it. And they're going to elevate it. Ki yesh yagoin v'anacha shehem hasitra achra sheinam roitzim liyos markav al kedusha. Because sadness comes from the sitra achra, and it doesn't want to be elevated to a place of markava al kedusha, to a place of being a chariot, being a conduit for kedusha. Va'al kain hem barchim in a simcha. So therefore they run away when there's simcha. Al kain sarch la'achrich oitam l'tzoicha kedusha. And therefore we have to take them and to put them into the kedusha. Dainu a simcha ba'al koracham, against its will. This is the whole idea of the world of tikkun. Earlier this week, I was learning with some people, gave a class on the whole idea of Adam and Chava, the world of tikkun, based from a deeper lens, through Talmidei Baal Shem Tov, through some ideas in Kabbalah. And the common theme is that Adam and Chava looked at the world, and Adam said, maybe we're meant to stay in a world of perfection. And Chava said, no, we're meant to be in a world of tikkun. And here in Gan Eden, there's no tikkun to do. So she says, let's eat from the Seitz Hadas. Hashem wants us to. Wasn't rebellious. You look carefully at the words. Was there really a punishment? Or maybe Hashem was proud. Did Adam really give up his wife and say it was her fault? Or he said, no, the credit is due to her. Who told you to eat from this? He goes, my wife. My genius, smart, charming wife. She was the one who decided we should eat from it. It was her doing. She gets the credit, not me. And what was the credit? I have to wait, because it seems like there was a punishment. But what was really the credit? This Chava said, I'm not makabel that Hashem put us here for no reason. I don't accept that Hashem put me here to just sit. Imagine you go on vacation right now. You sit somewhere tropical, you're on a beach by yourself, it's beautiful, it's peaceful. A day, 2 days, 3 days, nothing to do, everything is handed to you. At a certain point, most people are going to say, I'm bored, I need something to do. Maybe a person will take 1 day like that. Maybe a week, maybe a month. But at a certain point, the person's going to say, I'm not here just to sit here and sip pina coladas on the beach. Like, I need to do something. Something I need to do with my life. I need to be metaking. I need to fix. I need to elevate. And if that sounds so wonderful to you and you're like, I just want to do that for 10 years, try it. Try it for a few days and you're probably going to feel after a few days like, what am I doing here? I need to get back to real life. And what does that mean, real life? Is that Chava looked at Gan Eden and said to Adam, there's nothing for us to do here. Hashem brought us down, our souls down from the highest world of connection to Him, put us here in this world. For what? There must be a reason. There must be something to do. So what was the punishment? The punishment wasn't really a punishment. It was a reality that pain exists. It was a reality that struggle exists. It's a reality that happiness exists. But that it's not just a plateau. It's not just a straight line. There's ups and there's downs. And that's what Chava was actually looking for. And ultimately, that's our mission in this world. Each of us in our own way, but to live within the world of tikkun. To live within the world of tikkun means I look around, not just at the world around me, but I look inside of myself and say, how do I fix everything that's happening here around me, which is really just a reflection and a representation of what's going on in upper Ilamis. So when I fix something in this world, I'm fixing something in all the worlds. That's why I think also we talk about the idea of being dan l'kavschus. Someone asked me once, why don't we just not be dan at all? Wouldn't it be better, instead of judging favorably, just don't judge. Just mind your own business. So there's something to it. Don't be dan, don't judge. But dan l'kavschus is a higher level. When we say don't judge, that means leave whatever that sadness is on the side. Dan l'kavschus means I take it and I find a hamtakas adinim. I find a way to elevate it to sweetness. I find a way to take that which might seem incorrect and find a way to elevate it to a world of tikkun. I find that which may seem distant and find a way to make it close. This is the whole piece in Chaf Gimel. Next time we're going to go into Chaf Daled, just a little bit longer. But Chaf Gimel, if we're going to review Chaf Gimel, there's a world of tikkun. And it's our job to look at the world around us and to look internally at ourselves and say, it's not enough that here I am happy and there I am sad. Here I am close and there I am far. But rather to look at those beautiful breaking points that we have and turn that into Evan Masu Abanim Haisel Reshpina Zdoinois Nases Chuyos. Read just a little bit from Kitzur Likutei Moharan, just because it sums up the piece very nicely. Here we're talking from Likutei Eitzos. So it takes this teaching that we just had and puts it into a practical thing of what we should do. So it says, we should be spending time and attempting to turn every bit of sadness and anxiety into happiness. And an intelligent person needs to look at whatever that is giving them sadness and find a way to turn that into simcha. And that is looking at simcha in a whole way, looking at simcha in a pure way. When you overcome the sadness and depression, and you put them into the simcha, as we've said, against their will, and you turn it into simcha. So, may Hashem bless all of us that this Adar, we have more simcha. And this Adar, we take whatever it is that is making us feel sad, depressed, distant, and we find a way to turn that, not to ignore it, not to stifle it, but to find a way to turn that, to look at it directly, and to find a way to turn that into our greatest simcha. Okay, shkoyach everyone for joining.